Good morning, everybody. Good morning. So thank you. Thank you all for joining us today. We've got a robust, great program today to really highlight and showcase some of the fantastic work that we have going on in our state in terms of apprenticeships. I'm Jacob Hsu. I'm the chair of our state's Apprenticeship 2030 Commission. And I want to begin by thanking some of my fellow commissioners here joining us today. I see Tanya Terrell, I see Senator Jim Rosapep, I see Brian Cavey, see Delegate Eric Ebersol, and I know we've got a bit of a traffic situation this morning. It's the first day of school for like half of Baltimore, so so I think we'll still see some more commissioners come in a bit. I also wanted to call out and thank Sarah Feisenig from the University of Baltimore Schaefer Center for helping us to organize today's event. I also want to thank my chief of staff, Mustafa Wahid, and Nakira Lee, I think, who's here as well, who's for helping us pull together today's event. So really, it's from the bottom of my heart. This wouldn't have happened without the heroic efforts of all of you at the last here. Today's event really is around building a new model for the future of workforce that puts opportunity at its core. And I wanted to really first start by, for some of you, what is a registered apprenticeship? Right? So the mandate in the charter for our commission is really getting to 60,000 registered apprenticeships by the year 2030, right? And when we talk about sort of a registered apprenticeship, it's really a paid learning experience, right? So, here really in terms of apprenticeships, employers are the foundation, right, of our registered apprenticeship programs, and apprentices are able to receive structured on-the-job learning, right, where they're also paid. Right? They're paid to actually earn those skills, and they have wage progressions to be able to complete their apprenticeship. Oftentimes, the apprenticeship is either time-based, competency-based, or hybrid between the two to see when an apprentice actually graduates and is ready for permanent employment. I really wanted to start here today talking about the vision, right? The change that we want to see in our state, right? And our governor has so eloquently put it, this is really about creating new pathways to work, wages, and wealth in that order, right? It's that and also much more, though. It's an opportunity, not just for workforce, it's an opportunity for industry, right? It's good business because every business needs a prepared, diverse, scalable, adaptable, and predictable talent pipelines in order to grow their futures, right? For learners in the education world, for learners and the young people of our future, right? And adult learners, it's about creating new opportunities to actualize their potential, right? Regardless of whether that requires a college degree or not, right? And it's also about enabling new career pathways where people maybe perhaps never even considered, right? And it just might become their calling. For our workforce, it's really around closing the opportunity gap, right? Such that any Marylander from any racial, geographic, or educational background will have access, right, to careers of the future that can provide long-term stability and also family advancing wages. And finally, right, it's about community, right? And as one of my Fortune 500 sort of employers executives mentioned to me and put it somewhat ineloquently, but I think also aptly, it's shooting a money cannon in the form of payroll and consumption directly into geographies and communities, right? And so that's why when we look at sort of the apprenticeship and the outcomes that we're looking for, it's about creating balanced outcomes for many different stakeholders and really can change the game. And so today I wanted to begin by also sort of turning this over and we'll talk a little bit about the program, right? And so in the morning, we're going to kick off. We're going to hear some opening remarks from our host, Fearless today, and Latoya Staten will be presenting a bit about Fearless's early career programs. We'll then be moving to BGE, right? We'll talk about youth apprenticeships and their youth career academy. We'll then take a bit of a break in between, about 10 minutes in between sessions, and we'll move over to tech and cyber apprenticeships. And followed by apprenticeships in the public sector, which is a real interesting area, a massive growing movement that's actually happening there in apprenticeships in government. And finally, we'll close out really by looking at policy and some industry apprenticeships as well. And we've got some incredible employers like T. Rowe Price and the Baltimore Alliance for Careers in Healthcare. And so with that, let me turn this over to Latoya, who can provide some opening remarks for us. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Jay. Good morning, everyone. Again, my name is Latoya Staten. I am the executive director of the Fearless Institute. Before I talk about the Institute, I want to give you a little bit of history about Fearless and who we are. So Fearless is 15 years old. We are the largest minority-owned digital services company in the region. Started 15 years ago, and we have 500 employees throughout our organization. And so we have a large impact on the workforce and the future workforce, but more so, we have a 50-50 goal. That means 50% women and 50% people of color. And that is unlike the tech industry, which typically is less than 1%. So we are very proud of who we are as a company. But most importantly, I wanted to welcome you all to the Fearless Club. When asked to be a naming partner here with CFG Bank Arena, it is something that we hadn't done before. And so it was important for us to be a great partner when we think of, the work that we do here in Baltimore and that we're looking to do nationally. It is, what is partnership? And so I am proud to say that through our relationship with Oakview Group and at the CFG Bank Arena, we are their only social impact partner globally. That's a big deal for an Arena Investment Group. And what that means is that through that partnership, they help to seed the Impact Fund. The Impact Fund allows us to do a few things. The first one is focus on Baltimore area founders, making sure that they have the opportunity to scale and grow. And in hopes that those founders can also have employees. And so there's a lot of workforce development pieces that we also do, and we're able to do through the Impact Fund. So that is exciting for us. But at Fearless, our CEO, who is absent today and sends his wishes, also has the audacious idea that we call the 110 line. 100 million lives improved across 10 countries, and we will make $1 billion in revenue by doing that. And so the work that I do under the Fearless Institute is really helping to lead what we're calling the 100 million lives improved. We want to help individuals generate wealth, and that is by jobs that pay well, tech jobs, jobs in digital services, investing in the people. And that is really what the Apprenticeship Council, the work that you do. And so I'm excited to just talk a little bit about the Fearless Institute and how we help Fearless in their workforce development needs. So the Institute is meant to be a place where individuals can come together, they can mind meld, share best practices. We get to be innovative and thought leaders, but most important, we get to make impact. And so typically, Fearless being a government contractor, historically, we were unable to have entry-level talent join our organization through our workforce development initiatives. And so probably about 2 years ago, we had an opportunity on a contract to really start thinking of, we care about the future of work. And caring about the future of work, that means creating opportunities within our organization to change the lives of individuals. And so what we were able to do and put together is we did everything that an apprenticeship would do except register it. Right? So we went and found entry-level talent, those who had work experience but had never had a tech job before. We were able to recruit them with a focus on women and underrepresented individuals. And I will say that group brought more women into the tech space, and women, particularly women of color, into the tech space. So I'm very proud of that. We gave them that one-on-one mentorship. We had learning activities for them. We also made sure that they grew incrementally while performing the work day one. So they were day one contributors on the contracts in which we were working. That was our first time really thinking about what an apprenticeship could look like at Fearless, right? And so we're on the pathway to be able to register those in the future, but it was changing the lives. And I really want to direct and give a good story about it. So we had an individual who started out with us on an internship. Internship, very short. You work in the summer and then you leave. Well, we kept her on and started very, very help desk, very simple. Student at Morgan State University, had done some work in the tech space, but hadn't really had a full-time job. We brought her in, trained her, mentored her, and within a year, she became a software developer, billable on a contract, and now we've put her through the clearance process. That's how an apprenticeship program can work as you think of not just school to apprenticeships, but really growing the individual and of course, receiving that mentor. And so we're committed to the work that the Apprenticeship Council is really leading. We are committed to the blueprint that the governor set before us. And so we just want to say, welcome to the Fearless Club, welcome to the family, and we look forward to working with you all. Thank you.
Next up here, we want to introduce one of our fellow commissioners, Tanya Terrell from BGE, who is the head of corporate responsibility, who's going to share with us today really some of the incredible sort of pioneering work that BGE has been doing in the area of early career programs, youth apprenticeships.
Great. Thank you so much. It's good to see you all this morning. As Jake said, I am Tanya Terrell, and I lead BGE's Corporate Community Impact Organization. I suspect I don't need to tell anybody about BGE in this room. But I will say that BGE is one of 6 utilities under our parent organization, which is Exelon Corporation, headquartered in Chicago, also here, a large footprint in the Harbor East community and another headquarter location in Washington, D.C. And we're one of the nation's largest by customer count transmission and distribution energy companies in the country. And it's been an interesting ride at BGE and in the energy sector. But I came from, and I wanted to use this as a starting point, from a very long 17-year career in the nonprofit sector, specifically focused on workforce development. And quite honestly, my introduction to BGE came about 10 years ago when BGE and Exelon decided to embark on a workforce development initiative for the company. And the pilot was starting here in the Baltimore area. One thing that BGE noted, and I'll go to talk about the strategy in a few minutes, is that we have incredibly accessible careers across the company, particularly in many of the markets from which Exelon has a footprint. And one of the things that we wanted to ensure was that folks knew that our careers were in fact accessible. And it didn't resound that loudly from a community perspective or from an education institution perspective or from a public school perspective, that young folks could actually have an opportunity to come into the company, learn about our careers, and succeed there. And so 9 years ago or 10 years ago, I was at Associated Black Charities. We had a partnership with Greater Baltimore Committee, and we were working on looking at STEM careers that did not require a bachelor's degree, some post-secondary education. So many of you know the term middle skill. That's what we were examining. But the careers that had a real trajectory and a real career ladder with, if you infuse some related instruction and certification and training. And BGE was intrigued by the study that we were working on, and we did a spotlight and focus on careers in utility, careers in IT, careers in advanced manufacturing, and kind of like use that as a case study. And then they took that information and said, let's think about a strategy from which we can deploy this. And let's pilot initially a high school internship that was just between BGE and Mervo, that today is 9 years later, is a career academy that includes internships, youth apprenticeships, and is across 5 different jurisdictions within the BGE service territory. But we do think strategically about the work, and I'll talk about the Career Academy and its outcomes and what we're doing with the pilot for our youth apprenticeship program. But I do want to start with our strategic pillars at the company because that's important. We think about workforce development from a multi-generational perspective. You can't just start with high school, and you can't just think about high school. You've got to think about work-ready adults. You've also got to think about how do you prepare people to even think about careers. And our research says that one of the tipping points for starting to think about careers happens in middle school. And so we have an extensive middle school STEM education program. We have STEM centers across the state. And we have a 4-week, not an internship, but we have a 4-week STEM experience with students to introduce them to the energy sector as it exists today and then as it exists in the future, because everybody knows that the energy sector is transforming in very rapid and aggressive and necessary ways. We also hold within our STEM education component where the high school academy sits. And so our high school academy is a 6-week summer paid internship experience. It has an immense amount in that 6-week time of professional development, education, and then on-the-job observation activities that happen with our high school students. We recruit them specifically from CTE programs. So we have a deep reach in Baltimore City, but also in Baltimore County, Howard County, and Anne Arundel County. And those are just to start. So I don't want to sound like I'm ending there when we think about our reach out. And we're looking for students who have an aptitude for the careers that we offer in the company, whether that's on the utility and very trade specific, could be pre-engineering. We have a very comprehensive drone or unmanned aerial division. That's what I'm supposed to say. Thank you. And so we've decided that that's where we can give some students some insight and exploration and visibility to what our careers are. As an example, we hire from our program every single year, so I want to make sure that I'm explicit in sharing that statement. Last year, we had 40 young people in our summer internship experience. Half had graduated from high school that year. Of that half, 11 now work for the company. The others went to college. They pursued their other career tracks. And our goal was to ensure that they had multiple opportunities to access the company. This was our first year piloting the youth apprenticeship, and we're really proud of the successes there. So we have 4 youth apprentices with us, and obviously they're continuing up with us. They started in the summer. They are in our drone team and they're in our environmental team. And so far they're having a really good experience. And so we will pilot through the course of the next 18 months to make sure that they're getting the experience that they have. I want to thank the Department of Labor for the partnership, because that is exactly how the track works for youth apprenticeships. They helped us with our selection. They helped us manage the relationships with the different school districts. And we'll continue to do that into the future, because again, we feel like we need to provide multiple access points for young people across our city. We're very much committed to the Blueprint for Education. And I want to thank Latoya for her remarks, because her leader, Delali, is very much invested. He's the co-chair of the Governor's Workforce Development Board. Our CEO is the chair of the Governor's Workforce Development Board. So we are 10 toes down when it comes to workforce development and our commitment to this work. But it doesn't just end there, but this is a starting point for us. We feel like we've got great momentum. And what we know will happen is that we will learn along the way around what works, what's going to work for young people, that we continue to have these multiple access points for students across the state, so that they can continue to feel like we are an employer that they can have an option of coming to work for. And we've been doggedly pursuing creating the pathway to our company. I think we've demonstrated that commitment with the number of hires that we've made and will continue to make as a result of this investment.
Uncharacteristically, we're actually running ahead of program today, which is excellent, which means that we actually have some time for Q&A. We've left about 10 minutes buffer between each of the sessions so we can ask questions. So questions, we'll pass microphones around the room. Any questions for Tanya, UT?
Thank you. First of all, I think that's great. I'm just curious about the 10 students that went on, or 11 that went on to college. Will they continue as part of the program, or how will that work?
It's so interesting that you say that. Some have and some have not. But we have a college internship program. So just this past summer, 2 of our high school students who decided to transition to college have come back as college interns with us. And so we give, again, it's all about the options. And so 2 decided to pursue that option. others may have explored other opportunities for themselves in the summer. And we hire from our college internship program too.
Do they do a rotation and go through different departments, or do they stay and kind of continue to build that skill set?
It depends. We have a high number, my colleague Joe White from Exelon HR is here. We have a high number of college interns who are engineers, so they may just stay in their track. Versus one of our high school students who became a college intern, she has an interest in environmental sciences. Where there's multiple ways for her to engage at different departments of the company. We have an environmental department. We also have a sustainability team. We have a clean energy solutions group. So she can explore a number of options with us, and we'd love to continue to have her. We've made a significant investment in that student, so it's our best interest to keep her attached to our work and to our company.
That's great.
Their apprenticeship involves work by the apprentice that is valued by the company. Can you talk about that?
Well, our youth apprenticeship program, we just started this summer. So they started their second round they went through our 6 weeks of orientation, development, and observatory work. Just on August 20th, they've started their new track of exploration. But the parameters for youth apprenticeships with Dollar are pretty tight, so we'll ensure that we meet those, but they really just started the work. So I'm happy to revisit it at a kind of like the next benchmark, but it will include that. Our youth apprenticeship is registered with the state, and so they'll have that experience. They will also obtain, particularly those on the drone team, a license. And so that'll be part of their certification for their apprenticeship work. Yes.
You may have said it, do you have an intentional lens through which you recruit in terms of demographic mix? You may have set it up.
Well, we start with
Can you
school.
repeat the question?
Do we have a, you want to?
Is there a lens through which they recruit specific individuals, communities, target populations? Is there an intentionality to who you bring in?
From the beginning, I think we started with where we saw some gaps in folks who felt like they could access careers with us. And so that was largely in the city. We've since expanded, but our scope is on students, particularly who are on a CTE track that align to a core business area in the company. We've been very rigorous in our pursuit of ensuring that women pursue careers in energy and utility. It has been uneven for many years. We want to make sure that we're opening the door for folks who would otherwise not have the opportunity. And so I would say that we've been pretty strategic in finding students and others who may have felt locked out of internships or youth apprenticeships previously.
Great comment. If people want to ask questions,
Yeah. Is it hard to hear in the back?
People want to ask questions, so please introduce yourself. Questions, get to know who you are. Also, Tanya, I have a question, so take sure here. In terms of registration, right? As what has BEG been looking at registering your apprenticeship programs?
The youth apprenticeship is a registered apprenticeship. Where's Logan? Logan's right there. Logan's with the Department of Labor, and he's worked really closely with my team on our pilot for our youth apprenticeship program. It's a pretty rigorous process, I will say that. It's pretty intensive, and I think that's one of the things that we know doesn't create a hesitation for us, but certainly like, how do you manage the volume? Because to unlock it, you do have to apply per student for apprenticeship. You've got to, the state is an intermediary between us and the school system. The school system is pretty explicit to your point around which schools would be best positioned to have a youth apprenticeship go to whichever business is best aligned. And so it's a process for sure. One that we kind of have some lessons learned from. And it'll help us think through how we progressively expand the program. But it could create a capacity issue, but we're examining that. And so I think we feel comfortable with where we started. We now know what we know. And so as we look to the next cohort, which will be next summer, and then we'll also have some insights into the experience that the core we have now have had, we'll figure out how we can scale that.
Well, thank you, Tanya.
Thank you all.
Next up, we're gonna roll right into the next program here. And so, we're gonna move up a little bit and have Kate Bergen from Catalyst that about tech professions.
Great, is this on? No, okay, let's get this one on. Can I get over yours, Jay, maybe while we get this one?
So quick note about lights, because we're kind of working through, so we're working through speakers, so we might have to use our original microphones if that's okay. Loud outdoor voices if that's fine.
All right, let me do a sound check. Does this sound good? People know, okay, perfect. All right, well, good morning, and Jake, thank you so much, Chair Shu and members of the commission. My name is Kate Bergen, and I am delighted to be here on behalf of Catalyst to kick off the tech and cyber apprenticeship section and to talk about the future of apprenticeships in the technology space. And I know that we are all here in this room today because of our commitment to strengthening our own businesses and communities and to creating generational wealth for Maryland residents. And we know that apprenticeships are a tool that is proven to achieve those goals. And thanks to so many people in this room and others, we're making a lot of progress. But the reality is that technology apprenticeships remain only a fraction of available technology jobs. So as we think about the future of technology and how much is changing, I want to ask the question of what's holding us back? What's holding us back from making technology apprenticeships a core part of our value creation? And I spend a lot of my time, as I know so many of us in this room do, talking to employers. And I consistently hear about 3 core challenges that are holding companies back from achieving their technology talent goals right now. And this is true whether or not it's full-time hire, an intern, or an apprenticeship program in technology. What I hear about is skill gaps that are getting wider with accelerating technological change, that tech change is creating a lot of uncertainty about the skills and jobs of the future, and that companies are thinking about how do I invest most efficiently in my workforce? Is it new hires? Is it reskilling? Or is it a combination of both of those things? And so the constellation of all of these macro changes in the tech space are prompting companies to rethink their talent strategy and their long-term talent strategy. And what we also see is that tech apprenticeships remain at a limited scale in terms of the market. So what I'd like to do today is share a little bit more about each of these trends and what they say about the future of tech apprenticeships and apprenticeship roles in tech, what they mean for employers, and then also how apprenticeships can actually be the solution to solve some of these business problems. I'm going to turn it over to Obi, one of my amazing Catalyst colleagues, to talk about his journey at the end. But what I hope that you take away from this session is that apprenticeships are actually better equipped than traditional hiring and training channels. So they're better equipped to deliver the jobs of the future, especially if we can think about how to expand the current apprenticeship model. So a little bit about some of these trends. So skill gaps getting wider with tech change. So this is occurring on multiple levels. This is occurring on the tech stack level. Companies changing their tech stacks. They want people with hands-on Kubernetes and Python experience right now. The roles are changing. So what used to be a high demand for software developers 2 years ago, now we're hearing about DevOps, data engineers, data analysts. And what we're also seeing is that the current channels for hiring and training can't metabolize this change fast enough to keep up with the specificity and needs of employer demands. And so if we continue to hire the way we have always hired, what we're going to see is productivity declines and people not being able to come up to speed fast enough in tech roles. And we're also going to see or continue to see rising talent costs. And of course, the big headline is AI and how fast AI is changing everything. And that's absolutely true. And that's precipitating big questions about what the roles of the future are. And I'll give you an example. Right now, you talk to people that say prompt engineers, like that is the thing that people want right now. But the reality, if you talk to technologists, what they'll also tell you is 1 year from now, 2 years from now, it's probably not going to be prompt engineers, but they don't know what that job is going to be. And so what you see happening right now is that employers are looking for that mid or senior level employee. There's a lot of tech talent in the space right now. And so they're looking for a unicorn and not investing in big tech talent pipelines at scale. And then finally, starting to see more and more employers choosing to invest in their current workforces and investing in reskilling and how to create pathways for their current employees that create opportunities to help address these challenges and maintain their workforces. So the question that I get asked all the time, and that Jake asked me to talk about today is, what are those jobs of the future in tech? And the answer is that we don't know, and employers don't know the answer to that question. But what we do know is that what is going to remain constant are some of the key skills that enable employees to thrive and adapt. And those are skills like tenacity and problem solving and the ability to learn. And these are going to be the essential skills that are going to help people be top performers and will help people adapt in this changing environment. And that these are skills that we also see through programs like we just heard and at Fearless and at PGE, that people are intentionally developing and growing through a very sophisticated talent strategy. These are skills that people are developing and that are going to help them be successful and thrive. So at Catalyte, we have really focused on building a solution to address these challenges and make apprenticeships a better way to hire. So not just part of your talent strategy, but a better way to hire. And so some of the ways that we do that are we actually customize training to our partners' tech stacks. We rapidly develop new roles and retire those roles. We are offering now reskilling options, and we leverage our machine learning to identify individuals with no degrees, no prior experience, who have those qualities and skills that I just described. Because what we find is that if you can take people with tenacity and hunger and problem solving and adaptability and pair that with rigorous hands-on training, you can help create apprentices that can thrive in today's tech and can also learn tomorrow's tech and tomorrow's roles. So I am not a policymaker, and I know we have a lot of policymakers in the room, so I just want to caveat for this next slide with that comment. I'm a practitioner, but in thinking about the role of and the future of technology apprenticeships, I did want to think and ask myself, how could we flip some of these challenges that we're seeing in the tech space in this piece of change? How can we flip that to from being barriers to apprenticeships to actually being opportunities to expand apprenticeships? And so I did it kind of how might we exercise in thinking about this session. So how might we expand and change the apprenticeship model to meet the realities of today's environment? So how might we unlock more roles for apprenticeships by facilitating the rapid creation of new occupations that matches the speed of technological change and employer need? How might we unlock more opportunities by considering reskilling to be an apprenticeship? And how might we consider mid-level employees who are making a major shift in their job category to also be an apprenticeship? And then how do we continue to invest in programs that develop those essential skills, programs like the service tier option, programs like one that my colleague Jim Smith is working on? How do we invest in those programs to develop those skills? And how do we start even before the apprenticeship period to get people ready? And then how do we continue to leverage technology to accelerate impact and really drive scale in technology apprenticeships? So, if we can make some of these changes, I think, and expand the way we think about the apprenticeship model, apprenticeships can actually deliver the jobs of the future and the skills of the future for employers. And I think that's how we're really going to get scale for employers and scale in terms of our workforce goals, we have in the state of Maryland, and for our Maryland businesses and communities, and most importantly, our people. And so this is where I'm going to stop talking and turn it over to Obi to share your story and experience and take it away.
Thanks, Katie. Good morning, everyone. Morning. Great reaction. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, my name is Ovina. I go by Ovi. I'm just going to talk about my story with you. I think there are three things that I want you to think about as I try to bring my experience with Catalyte and that apprenticeship program. So 20 weeks, 12 months, 2 years. And that is the time frame it took to transform my journey to where I am today. So I'm a front-end engineer at Bloomberg Industry Group. And at the moment, I'm serving on a team that's working on the flagship product for Vigo. And going back to my apprenticeship experience, so prior to that, what I was doing, I just got my degree in English, and I was exploring different options. I did things like volunteered by pediatric dentist. I volunteered at a pediatric hospital at the time, Mount Washington, if some of you are familiar with that hospital. I was also talking with Michelle that I got a CNA and a GNA, just trying to get some foot into healthcare industry, just exploring. But then I saw tech and I saw the promise in tech, and trying to get to that, the steps weren't as straightforward. So I got a master's, or started a master's degree, and then I realized that I needed some hard skills to actually be valuable in the market. And while searching for internships, I hadn't known about apprenticeships, but then I saw job postings for Catalyte, and honestly embarked on that journey. I started with 20 weeks of really rapid upskilling in the whole full stack, front end, back end technologies, and a wide array of topics that were very essential to the work that I would be placed in. After those 20 weeks, a year of rotation on different client projects to see fit, to see what I'm interested in, to get some experience in the real world. I was placed alongside senior software engineers, got a chance to ask them questions, got a chance to safely contribute and grow in a space, but meaningfully contributing on this team. So that was what happened within those 12 months. Second year, I was placed on a team with Bloomberg Industry Group. And I think that's where I really began to shine. My individual contribution was really noted. And after that 1 year experience, I was offered a job opportunity with them and moved on from Catalyte. But all of that happened in the span of 2 years, from working as a mental health worker, basically minimum wage at that point, and 2 years where I am as a software engineer at Bloomberg Industry Group. I'm currently a lead front-end engineer on my team, and I'm always doing my best and hoping for more opportunities as I give more to the team. So yeah, that's my story in a nutshell.
He and I are happy to take any
Yes.
questions.
Yes, any questions?
Okay. My name is Jim Smith. Can you guys hear me? Okay. I'm Jim Smith, CEO of Connect Potential. And first of all, great story. So thank you so much for sharing. I know in terms of our apprenticeship programs that there are also challenges in terms of that experience. And I'm curious, what would you want to share with us about from your apprenticeship perspective about the challenges of the demands and trying to balance work life and while you're also studying and kind of learning, if you don't mind sharing a little bit about that.
Yeah, there are many challenges. I think one of the biggest ones is just the sheer volume of the topics that we had to cover. But one of the lessons I learned from that is to navigate uncertainty. To just take and be flexible and just take things as they're coming along. Yeah, so those were some of the challenges, just like it was a short 20 weeks and there was a lot. There was a lot, and we're getting constant assurance from our instructors that this is normal. There's a lot of information, and it was nice to have some kind of mentorship and someone I could go to and just tell them like, this is where I am, this is how I'm feeling about the program, and getting feedback, in the moment about my experiences about the topics, and having people to ask questions really helps. And I think once you can see people around you that are doing this, it helps you to your vision change. It's possible. It's not easy, but it's possible. So I think just embarking on this whole new world, it just required a bit of flexibility. It wasn't something I'm used to, right? I was mostly a writer. That was the path, maybe a healthcare if that's opportunity would open up. But yeah, I don't know if that answers that question. If you want to tribute to that.
I mean, I think you're exactly right, that there are a lot of challenges that people face, and the programs are intentionally rigorous by design to make sure that people are going to be successful and be ready. I know that we listen and ask a lot of questions of our apprentices to understand how we can reduce more barriers to people participating. And so, some examples of that are understanding that apprenticeships are really difficult for people who will have caregiving responsibilities as well. And so we've adapted our schedule in terms of our training to be much more flexible in terms of when people are doing the learning in order to accommodate that. So as we really seek to listen and learn from our apprentices how we could reduce those barriers, I think we'll continue to improve on that front.
Bob Woodward, consultant for the commission. Can you say something about how it benefits the company in terms of, especially, you're investing, but at the same time, you're getting some work from the apprentices, some point in period. When that curve starts to shift so that what you're getting is in a way helping you recoup the investment in the apprenticeship itself.
Yeah, so I think this is a question about how do we ensure that that apprenticeships are actually creating value for employers, and I think that is such an important question as we look to identify ways to scale apprenticeships. So for us, we believe that the roles that we are delivering have to solve a core business need and problem that the companies are having in terms of their talent pipelines. Otherwise, they're not actually going to be true career opportunities and opportunities for conversion. We typically see, so there is also a bit of a misconception among employers that apprentices require more handholding and more support than other entry-level talent. And it is level 1 and level 2 talent. So people do require mentorship and support, but they also bring with them a wealth of prior work experience and life experience that often makes them stronger team members. So we see, in general, apprentices ramp up to teams faster than college-based entry-level hires, and then excel to that next skill level faster than other hiring channels. And then also apprenticeships, because of some of the challenges that I was just describing in tech cities, apprenticeships are actually really well equipped to deliver roles that you can't get from other training educational models. So let me give you an example. We are working with the largest retail data analytics company in the United States, and they could not get entry-level cloud DevOps talent. And so we custom built a cohort for them of entry-level cloud DevOps talent with a Python specialty. And that is talent that they wouldn't otherwise be able to acquire. So, and what we're seeing now is that they are on track to exceed skill levels, communication, ability to learn, agility on teams, technical skill. But your core question, it must solve a business problem in order to be commercially viable.
I just, if I could follow up, it sounds like the ability to do this, I don't want to be too controversial here, but outside the registry space might be essential for that adaptability and change that we do.
So we are a federally registered program, and we are going to actually be registering with the state of Maryland. We just recently updated our DOL standards, and we're going to be doing that. I do think that the ability to more rapidly iterate on occupations and to have wide umbrellas for occupations that allow more roles to fit underneath there could be ways to help with that. Yeah. Other questions?
Yeah, hi, Arthur Ellis. So you mentioned something about Python and
Kubernetes.
and that company. Can you talk about that? But it's so fast.
Yeah.
But it sounds so big and important.
Yeah. So cloud DevOps is a very specific role that helps actually companies translate technologies into operation and into infrastructure. And it's not a role that is typically trained at the college level, in practice, or in other training pathways.
So when you say cloud DevOps, what's that?
So it's development operations, essentially is what it stands for.
Cloud, okay.
And I will tell you that I am not a technologist by training, and when a client asked me about Kubernetes, I was telling you that I had to like Google it over on the side and then come back. But what I hope that we can take away from that example is that this is a very sophisticated company doing incredibly sophisticated data analysis and data engineering work that could not meet a business need with college-based hiring. And so they worked with us to develop a curriculum to meet that need. And now we're going to be developing multiple cohorts per year across multiple roles and actually focusing on reskilling current employees into those roles.
Yeah, so Python is a computer program, right?
Mhm.
So using a computer program,
Yeah.
Python language. Okay,
Yeah.
right. Thank you.
Yeah. And now you're putting my technology in. No more questions like that. Senator Roosevelt.
Yeah, Jim Rosenberg, the executive. You touched about hiring from college.
Yeah.
I live in College Park, I represent the University of Maryland this, and the computer science programs are like oversubscribed. Okay, number two is the programs are very expensive for the state, for the college, and for the kids. What, a little controversial here.
Yeah.
Right, what is the value of those kids going to the University of Maryland? I mean, wouldn't it make more sense to recruit the kids in high school, in apprenticeships, and get them to work, and not pay? I mean, the tuition now with fees is like in-state like $30,000. That doesn't count the money the state puts in. It seems like a dead weight loss on the economy for the IT industry. Sorry?
Isn't that so?
No, I'm really asking a great question.
Yeah.
What is there a value that you see in this space of the kids who are getting, the taxpayer and the kids are spending all that money compared to what you're doing?
Is there a camera in this room? Okay, so my also controversial response to that question is that resumes and college degrees are proxies for experience, but they are not equivalent to excellence and experience. And when you talk to employers about their college recruiting, what we hear about is that they're just trying to fill the docket and get the 30 people in that interview, and that it is not about finding the right 30 people for those slots and the right 30 people for those. It's a numbers game in terms of, who's signing up and who's getting the slots in that individual space. So it says a lot about a student who is able to complete a 4-year degree and get the leadership experience, and that has a lot of value. But what we find in our work is that, and we have about 48% of Catalytic apprentices do come from some kind of degree program, but it's not a requirement, and we don't look at it, and we do not see that it is predictive of those qualities of tenacity and problem solving and the ability to learn. So what I would say now is that if you are interested in a technology career, pursue an apprenticeship, because you will actually have an opportunity to be paid to get those skills. You will get there faster. And then you will be that much farther ahead, again, 2 years from now, when it's not a cloud DevOps role, it's something else.
And couldn't you pick up the courses along the way if there were specialized courses that apprenticeship is normally have?
Yeah, so the question is, could you pick up those courses along the way if there was something that the apprenticeship didn't have? And yes, that is absolutely the case. And I do think a core difference between a computer science degree and an apprenticeship is that a computer science degree is teaching a lot of the concepts. An apprenticeship is teaching more hands-on practical application and the ability to learn new technologies. But we are again seeing how do people continue to then reskill, learn that next tech, learn that next role. And Latoya talked about that and that shift from an IT services person into a registrar. Yeah.
Maybe this is fair or not, but I'll because would it be fair to say that in your point about the 30 slots